A cold wind whispered down from the high peaks of the Frostfangs, threading through Winterfell's ramparts and stirring the gray-green banners that bore the direwolf of House Stark. Eddard Stark felt that wind keenly as he crossed the Godswood alone, its chill weaving into the furs at his shoulders and pricking gooseskin along his arms. The Godswood in summer could feel like a sanctuary, its pools shimmering like polished obsidian beneath the moss-hung branches of the great weirwood. But in the last days of autumn, it felt older, sterner, an ancient judge awaiting vows. Ned's steps slowed, boots sinking into red-gold leaf fall, until he reached the heart tree. There, beneath eyes carved before the conquest, he unfolded a letter that smelled faintly of smoke and forge ash. The hand was Maester Walken's, but every line pulsed with the heartbeat of the boy Ned had met in King's Landing moons ago. Gendry Waters, journeyman smith, broad-shouldered and quiet, with eyes the color of storm-tossed skies. Iron in his wrists, honor in his silences. Robert's blood, unmistakable as a stag's antlers. The parchment spoke of progress at the forges of Winterfell. Steel balanced true, horseshoes fitted sound, and of a lad's dutiful mornings sparring with sergeants in the yard. Yet woven between the lines was something more fragile. The tentative wonder of a boy who knew at last his name might mean something greater than bastard. Ned traced the curling script, then folded the letter thrice with measured care. The gods themselves seemed to breathe around him, the carved face bleeding red sap near his elbow, like the slow tears of a wooden giant. He thought of Arya. The fear set to her jaw, the way her laughter leapt like a little wolf through the stone corridors. She was all edges and questions where Sansa glided smooth as milk. Arya's restlessness had already broken half a dozen needlepoints and left the Master of Arms shaking his head at her defiance. Yet in Gendry's company Ned glimpsed a calming influence he had not anticipated. Respect, honest and rough-hewn, passing between Smith and Wolf-girl in nods and half-smiles over practice blades. That alone might have been reason enough to keep the boy. But Robert's last visit north had ended with heavy silences about succession and Cersei's brittle suspicion. When Jon Arryn died, something poisonous had seeped into the marrow of King's Landing. Ned had felt it around Littlefinger's obsequious grin and Varys' soft shoes. The realm was balancing on a dagger's edge, and daggers had a way of slipping. The wind gusted, rattling the copper leaves overhead. Ned dropped to one knee upon the damp earth, head bowed. He was not a man given to flights of fancy. He had seen too many men bleed for such whims. Yet he could not shake the notion that in the chance meeting of Arya and a king's hidden son lay a braid of possibilities strong enough to bind two great houses before storms gathered. If Robert's line failed, as Aerys's had, chaos would follow. Renegade lions, scheming falcons, every vulture of the realm circling the Iron Throne. But if the blood of Baratheon and Stark flowed together in children born of honor rather than war, perhaps the realm might find a steadier course. He rose, the weirwood's red leaves whispering down around him like quiet approval, and turned toward the stone-arched door that led back into the keep. His stride quickened. Letters would be sent this night. To Maester Pycelle with courtesy, to Robert with frank brotherhood, to Stannis with wary respect. Secrets could not be allowed to fester. Best to set truth in the open before whispers soured it. But first, he would tell Arya. Gendry's hammer fell in easy rhythm, striking orange-white metal atop the anvil in the cavernous smithy between Winterfell's second and third walls. Sparks flew like fireflies about his wrists, gilding the brown curls damp at his temples. The breath misting from his lips carried a hint of pine. The northern air was crisper than any he had tasted in Flea Bottom. He paused to plunge the blade into the quenching trough, steam hissing where water touched steel. Somewhere behind him, oil lamps fluttered and chains rattled as dray horses shifted in their stalls. Yet beneath the clangor Gendry sensed a presence, and when he straightened, wiping sweat from his brow, he found Lord Eddard Stark framed in the doorway like a shadow made flesh. "My lord." Gendry inclined his head, surprised by the sudden flutter in his chest. He had faced highborn men before. Renly Baratheon had come once to the Street of Steel, but none carried the quiet weight of Winterfell's lord. Stark eyes missed little. Gendry, Ned began, voice soft but firm. Have you a moment? My lord. Gendry set the half-formed sword aside. Its edge was brighter than moonlight, symmetrical as a prayer. He followed Ned out into the night air, where torches guttered along the yard's inner wall. They walked past the kennels, ghostly hounds yipping at their passing, until they reached the training yard. The ground was stamped hard from decades of drills. Moonlight pooled over practice dummies and blunted spears. Tell me, Ned said at length, hands clasped behind his back. Have you given much thought to your future? Gendry frowned, unsure. I mean to earn my master's mark, my lord. Good work and steady wages, that's future enough, I reckon. A fair ambition. Yet a man's birth shapes him, whether he wills it or no. Ned stopped beneath a torch sconce. The light revealed the streak of gray touching his dark beard. I have written to King Robert. I believe he would see you raised, in name if not in title. Not for vanity's sake, but for the realm's. Gendry's mouth went dry. Raised? How? Ace Gendry Baratheon, acknowledged son of the king. Ned let the words hang like banners in a high hall. And I would see you fostered here, to learn honor beside my own children. In time, when you and Arya are of age, I propose a betrothal. Mendeminir. Oh. The yard fell abruptly silent, save for the crackle of pitch-soaked wood. Gendry stared at his calloused hands, the valleys of scar tissue. My lord, I'm no prince. I'm just. You are Robert's works made flesh. Ned's tone hardened, but there was kindness in his eyes. And Arya is a wolf with too much winter in her blood for southern courts. Steel tempers. Steel. She would respect a man who learned worth at an anvil, not from a maester's scroll. Mendeminir. Gendry swallowed, unsure whether the warmth flooding his cheeks was fear or a fierce throb of hope. Arya, wild as a spring stream, had smiled at him once when she thought no one watched. In her gaze had been delight, not scorn. The memory glowed brighter than any forge. If the king agrees, Ned continued, you will take the stag in your sigil and the direwolf beside it. 2 houses bound, not by conquest, but by choice. He extended a hand. Gendry stared, then clasped it. Ned's grip was strong, scarred, honest, like the promise forged between them. King Robert Baratheon, when his laughter ceased rumbling through the throne room's rafters, dipped quill in crimson ink and scratched his name with a flourish. Ned. Gods be good, I've half a score of bastards, but only one that hasn't disappointed me yet. If Gendry's half the man his letters claim, let the realm have him. The quill snapped under Robert's fingers, and he bellowed for another. Cersei's green eyes narrowed behind her veil of gold hair. Stannis' mouth drew tight as a miser's purse. Yet the seal cooled, crimson wax beneath stag and crown, its edges hardening like fate. From Dragonstone, Stannis wrote a terse assent, though his maester noted how the parchment bore 3 separate tear marks, as if crumpled and smoothed anew. Renly, ever the courtier, sent bolts of Myrish silks that shimmered midnight blue and gold, with a jest that Joffrey might fancy the colors. Littlefinger smiled to hear it. Varys whispered in 100 ears, and the small folk of King's Landing scrawled new wagers on scraps of vellum. Who would sit the throne after Robert's gout or Cersei's claws felled him? Odds shifted daily. In Winterfell, ravens wheeled above the towers, black wings against steel skies. Sansa dreamt openly of tourneys, banners, and a sister crowned as princess. Arya scoffed, though a faint pink bloomed at her cheeks. She tackled her sword lessons with twice the fury, each parry ringing like chimes across the yard. Jon Snow watched from the parapets, ghost silent at his heel, and wondered where bastards truly belonged in Tales of Thrones. The winter town buzzed on the eve of the harvest feast, throngs of small folk gathering beneath lanterns. Stalls overflowed with blue turnips, barley loaves, smoked trout. In the great hall, roasting boars crackled over spits while minstrels tuned lutes near the high table. It was there, amid rising warmth, that Gendry first stood beside Arya in garb befitting neither smith nor princess. Plain wool, dyed the deep gray of the north, trimmed modestly in white. No circlet, adorned her raven hair. No brooch pinned his collar, yet they shone as though some invisible torch burned between them. Robb raised a toast, his voice steady though eyes danced with mischief. To the betrothed, may their union prove as strong as Valyrian steel, and as enduring as Winterfell's walls. Callous tops clinked. Arya's grin flashed wolf-sharp. Gendry shuffled, muttering thanks. Across the hall, Bran cheered from his perch upon Hodor's shoulders, while Rickon shrieked for more honeycakes. Even austere Master Luwin smiled, quill at rest behind his ear. Yet in the shadows near the kitchens, a messenger in livery of golden lions conferred with a hooded figure. Between them passed a slip of parchment bearing Cersei's seal, a lion's roar captured in wax. The hooded one gave a curt nod, tucked the note into a pouch sewn beneath his jerkin, and vanished like smoke amid the rushes. The hour was too festive for most eyes to notice, but old Nan, dozing by the hearth, blinked once at the retreating cloak, and muttered a half-remembered rhyme of wolves devoured by lions when the moon turned red. Snow fell early that year. Featherlight flakes clung to the black cloaks of Night's Watch riders who arrived bearing news of wildling unrest beyond the wall. Ned heard them in the solar, Gendry standing silent at his side. The smith had taken to wearing a small iron stag at his throat, a gift from Arya shaped upon her own anvil. She had burned 3 fingers forging it, but refused a maester's poultice until Jon bound the blisters in linen. Ned suspected the talisman meant more to Gendry than any royal sigil might. As the Black brothers departed, Maester Luwin approached with scrolls tied in green ribbon. "Correspondence from King's Landing, my lord, and a sealed letter for young Gendry." "Personal." Gendry broke wax with cautious thumb. The parchment within was fine as silk, the hand too elegant to be Robert's. One line, written in a slanting script like a thorned vine, coiled across the page. "Your father's crown breeds enemies faster than lies. Beware the lioness. Her claws unsheathe at dawn." No signature, only a smudge of violet perfume lingering like sin. Gendry's brows drew low. He showed Ned the line. The lord's jaw clenched. "Varys," Ned murmured. Recognition flickering, or someone using his little bird's wings. He folded the scrap. "Cersei will not take kindly to a Baratheon heir she cannot shape. Let her send claws," Gendry said, a rough pride kindling beneath his calm. "Iron bends under hammer, and I can swing one of those." Ned almost smiled. "You and Arya both." Moon by moon, the betrothal ripened like northern apples stored in straw. Arya's archery improved, thanks to Gendry's patient eye, and Gendry's reading progressed, guided by Arya's barbed but earnest corrections. They fenced at dawn, broke fast on oatbread, raced horses along the King's Road milestones. In those moments, Sansa observed from a balcony, and wondered whether songs might yet be written of a wolf maid and a forge-born prince. She recorded details on scraps to later feed her sister in jest. Arya rolled her eyes, but kept the notes under her pillow nonetheless. The realm, far to the south, grew restless. Gold cloaks drilled double watches. Rumors reached Winterfell of Lannister levies along the Blackwater Rush, ostensibly to guard against Dornish raids. Stannis wrote of ships mustering at Storm's End, silent as storms. Yet Robert's letters remained jovial, heavy with hunts and jests, as though the king believed the world would never dare tilt whilst he laughed. On the first day of the new year, a raven arrived from Pycelle. Jon Arryn's former squire, Sir Hugh, had died in a tourney. The hand's old maester had taken ill. Ned felt the old dread stirring, the smell of wildfire beneath stone. He called council in the solar. Roose Bolton, Maester Luwin, Sir Roderick Castle, and Catelyn at his side. He spoke of Lannister gold, and whispers of bastardy. Yet as plans spun, his mind lingered on Arya's smile when Gendry teased her stance, or the trust shining in the boy's storm-blue eyes. Those were the threads he would not allow cut. "Send riders to every watchtower," Ned ordered. "If Lannister men cross the neck, we meet them at Moat Cailin. But we hold no swords to the king. We hold oaths. And if the queen strikes at the betrothal itself..." Catelyn's gaze was steel. She had seen Tully enemy blood fill rivers once. She would not see her daughters. Then we make Winterfell an anvil and let the storm break upon it, Ned replied. His voice carried the quiet promise of iron shaping iron. Gendry will be tempered here, and Arya beside him. Whatever fires come, they will find us forged as one. Night deepened. In the broken tower where ravens nested, Arya knelt atop the outer stairs with needle resting across her thighs. Gendry sat beside her, legs dangling above moon-silvered roofs. Do you believe we can stop them? The lions? Arya asked, voice barely above the wind. I don't know, Gendry admitted. But I'll stand in front of you if they come. Hammer in one hand, sword in the other. Arya nudged him with her shoulder. You sound like some gallant in Sansa's songs. He shrugged, cheeks reddening. Maybe. Or maybe just a lad who's had enough of someone telling him he's nothing. Arya chewed her lip, then drew a deep breath. If father thinks this betrothal is right, I'll do my part. But if you ever start acting like a prince, I'll knock you into the snow. The smile they shared lingered in the cold night air. A fragile ember, glowing brighter than the lantern light below. When the first assassin came, he wore black boiled leather and a House Clegane crest, half scratched, from his pauldron. He slipped past the kennels at false dawn, poison needle clutched between ringed fingers. Ghosts howl, shattered the quiet white wolf launching from a doorway to hamstring the intruder. Jon's blade flashed silver in torchlight. By the time Gendry and Arya burst from the stables, the assassin bled out upon flagstones, needle lost in his own throat. Maester Luwine pulled free a small golden pouch, sewn into the man's jerkin. Inside rattled silvery coins stamped with a lion's head. Ned closed his fist around them. Return this to the queen, he growled, with my regards. But ravens fly faster than any man, and by the time the coin pouch dangled from a Winterfell raven's leg, Cersei's next move was poised upon the King's Road. A column of sellswords under Sir Meryn Trant's command, riding north with royal warrants. Their true orders were whispered in campfires. Bring the bastard boy south in chains. Deliver him to Queen's justice. In Winterfell's great hall, strategists gathered. Robb argued for crossing the Trident with sword in hand. Catelyn urged caution, counseled negotiation. The younger Starks watched tension writhe. Let them come. Arya snapped, fists clenched. We'll cut their warrants to ribbons. She's not wrong, Gendry murmured. He could forge 100 new arrowheads by week's end. He had counted the castle's spare bowstrings. Yet Ned placed a steadying palm on the table. We will not give Cersei the war she craves. We hold fast. A raven to Stannis, one to Renly. We remind them of their brother's word. And to Robert, a truth he cannot ignore. His queen seeks to seize his blood. Then so. He turned then to Gendry. The time has come to claim your name openly. Not as weapon, but as shield. Gendry breathed deep. Then I claim it. Gendry of House Baratheon, son of Robert of Houses Baratheon and Stark by oath. And by steel, Arya added, sliding needle free so the candlelight kissed its edge. Snow blanketed the world when the royal column reached the neck. Cold gnawed at their horses. Bog devils whispered in the reeds. Scouts vanished into gray fog and did not return. Sir Meryn pressed on, but fear settled in armored breastplates like frost. At Moat Cailin, banners of marsh green and direwolf gray snapped above crumbling keeps. Bolton and Reed, sworn to the Starks. Crossbowmen crouched behind moss-slick walls. No open gates awaited the Lions' men, only silence. 2 days they waited beneath sleet. Supplies dwindled. On the third dawn, a black-winged arrow hissed from ramparts to land at Sir Meryn's feet. Upon its shaft a note in careful script. Turn south or drown in the bogs. The neck swallows thieves. Sir Meryn spat curses, but his men muttered of sorcery and lizard lions dragging riders into murk. They turned south at dusk, torches guttering. Behind them, crannogmen melted back into water and sawgrass, smiles glinting sharp as dagger points. Word of the rout reached King's Landing with the speed of fear. Robert slammed a gauntleted fist against the Iron Throne's arm, demanding who dared move against his blood. Cersei's answer came in crocodile tears and cloying denials. Yet poison needles left long shadows, and the small council fractured. Varys counseled caution. Littlefinger whispered opportunity. Pycelle sighed sermons of loyalty. And in the alleys of Fleabottom, whispers spread of a blacksmith prince forging swords in the north. In Winterfell's great hall, candles burned low, when Arya and Gendry practiced footwork across rush-strewn stone, their breaths plumed white. Arya lunged, Gendry countered. Sparks leapt where needle's point kissed the flat of Gendry's new longsword, a blade he had forged for himself under Micken's eye. They circled, boots scuffing, neither yielding. Then Arya laughed, pure wolf song, and the blade dance slowed to a gentle crossing of steel. "You're improving," she said, cheeks flushed. "Maybe I've a good teacher," he replied. Their swords remained touching, edges meeting like fateful lines on a map. In that cross of steel, Ned Stark saw more than promise. He saw the realm's future, balanced between a wolf's loyalty and a stag's unbroken courage. Outside, the winter wind gathered strength, rattling shutters. But within the walls of Winterfell, two young hearts hammered in tandem, iron and ice forging something new beneath the snow-soft hush. The ravens kept coming. Reports of Lannister gold flowing toward the twins, whispers of Tywin's levies amassing in the west, rumors that Joffrey had drawn steel on a stableboy for mentioning a blacksmith's crown. Yet each message only strengthened Ned's resolve. He summoned ambassadors, barterers of grain and ore, men who owed the North favors uncollected. Lines were drawn in quiet ink, not yet in blood, but all new ink could darken. One night, by flickering firelight, Ned opened a small iron box upon his writing desk. Lyanna's box. Inside, wrapped in faded barrowcloth, lay her last letters, fragments of a wise-spun hope that had died under Rhaegar Targaryen's psalms. Ned had never spoken of them. Now, he laid them upon fresh parchment, weighing old grief against new dawns. He would not see another sister stolen by the machinations of power. Arya's choice would be hers, forged by affection, not by crowns. That belief filled the ink upon his quill. Spring arrived early, the snows melting to reveal green blades piercing black earth. On a morning washed gold by sunrise, Arya and Gendry knelt before the weirwood heart tree, hands clasped. Maester Luwin read the betrothal vows, his voice steady. Catelyn placed a simple silver ring, twin sigils entwined, upon Arya's finger. Wolves howled distantly as if marking the rite. Jon Snow smiled, though a shadow flickered in his gray eyes. He slipped away before the feast, ghost pacing red-pawed after him, toward the wall in vows of his own. That night, Winterfell's hall echoed with music. Drums, harp, pipes. Gendry danced clumsily, Arya guiding him, laughter circling them in a helix radiant and unbreakable. Torches blazed, mead spilled. Outside, the old gods watched from icy boughs. And the new gods, in their septs, hundreds of leagues south, perhaps listened. Far below the neck, Cersei paced her solar like a lioness denied prey. Joffrey whined at her side, demanding swords. Armies, blood, soon, my sweet prince. She purred, though her nails left crescents in her palm. The wolves grow fat on northern loyalty, but lions are hungrier. She turned to the Kingsguard knight who knelt before her. Ser Ilyn Payne, mouth sewn silent by royal decree. His pale eyes betrayed no emotion. Cersei handed him a vellum map, marked with the sigil of House Frey. Right ahead, our friends in the twins may yet barter passage for gold and promises. She kissed the map where the neck narrowed, a hiss of breath fogging the ink. Cut the wolf's road and the stag will follow, thrashing on a leash we forge for him. Ser Ilyn rose, steel-shod boots, silent upon marble. He vanished into shadow, bearing winter's doom southward. In the wolf's den, a grey keep on White Harbor's edge, Lord Wyman manderly received Ned's call for counsel. The fat lord hummed over maps, quills clutched like pastry crumbs, while Davos Seaworth, sent north by Stannis with tokens of goodwill, watched solemnly. Gendry stood to one side, every inch the apprentice lordling, broad, silent, absorbing politics like hot iron drinking carbon. King Robert's true-born heirs are a princess and princeling half Lannister, Wyman mused. If tongues wag of their legitimacy, they will, Davos murmured, salt-scuffed hand brushing his beard. Stannis will see to that. Truth is his only blade. Then the North must choose, Ned replied. Guard Robert's line or strengthen one that cannot be questioned. A son of his seed, bound to House Stark. Eyes turned to Gendry. He met them without flinch, though knuckles whitened around the hilt of his stag pommel dagger. Letters crisscrossed the kingdoms. Some begged peace, others demanded fealty. The Citadel's white ravens predicted a winter shorter than most, yet men's hearts felt colder. Through it all, Arya and Gendry trained, laughed, quarreled, made up, and spoke long into candlelit midnights about smithing, swordplay, the names of constellations, and what it meant to bear two great houses' hopes. Their betrothal ring grew warm with the rhythm of shared pulses. One candle-glow moment found them in Winterfell's crypts, where lords long dead slumbered in stone. At Lyanna's statue, Arya rested her palm on cold marble. "Father still grieves," she whispered. Gendry traced the direwolf carved at Lyanna's feet. "He grieves because he loved. If we love, maybe one day someone will grieve for us. But they'll remember too." Arya looked at him then, eyes shining like just-dropped steel. She kissed him, quick as a breath, tasting dust and tears and hope. The crypt held its hush, but somewhere above, a raven caught at first light. Seas turn, seasons shift, and men sharpen the edges of destiny. At Storm's End, Stannis drilled knights beneath black-winged banners, his gaze stern as iron links. At Casterly Rock, Tywin counted casks of gold, each coin a sword in waiting. At Highgarden, Renly threw feasts that masked coteries of reach lords whispering which wind they might follow. Yet no rumor, no plan, no whispered threat could dim the quiet forge fire lit in Winterfell's young hearts. Under a sky streaked by sheets of pink dawn, Arya and Gendry sparred once more upon the yard's turning sands. Sweat gleamed along their brows. Blades hissed in rhythmic salute, iron courting water dance. On a final pass, their swords crossed at shoulder height, lock held firm. They breathed each other's breath, hearts pounding in echo. The clang of steel slowed, then stilled. "Marry me tomorrow," Gendry said, voice hoarse. Arya laughed, swiping a strand of hair from her cheek with the back of her gauntlet. "We're too young, stupid. Next year then." A grin tugged Gendry's lips. "Or the day after the first snows melt." She tilted her head, studying him. "You'll wait until the last forge cools." Arya pushed his sword aside and stole another kiss. Longer this time, heedless of Lord Rickard Karstark's amused cough behind them. Their promise sparked like struck flint. Small, bright, unstoppable. And so the North held its breath. The realm poised upon blades of ink and ice, as a wolf girl and a blacksmith prince stood balanced between childhood and the storm of crowns awaiting them. Outside Winterfell's walls, armies stirred, ravens flew, and the Game of Thrones gathered its pieces. But within, two hearts beat the drum of an older song. Iron and ice, hammer and fang, echoing through stone corridors like the forge ring of destiny itself. Yet unfinished, yet unbroken, yet to be tested in fires the world had not imagined. The story of their union had only just begun, the first sparks drifting upward into winter's vast, waiting sky. Ka. A raw wind hissed around Winterfell's battlements, stirring pennants like restless spirits, and setting the ironwork of the ramparts to groaning. Somewhere beyond the outer wall, a direwolf answered, a long, lonely note that vibrated through stones older than the conquest. Ned Stark stood on the parapet near the broken tower and watched torch points wink across the darkened courtyard. Winterfell slept poorly these nights. Since the failed assassination attempt, guards doubled their rounds and ravens left the rookery at dawn and dusk. Wings black against a sky, bruised by early spring storms. Ned's cloak snapped at his calves as he wondered, not for the first time, if he had chosen a road that could never turn back. Footsteps scuffed behind him. Catelyn pressed a hand to his elbow. Snowflakes melted in her hair like tiny pearls. "You promised rest," she murmured. "So I did." Ned kept gaze on the yard where Gendry sparred with Robb beneath flickering torchlight. Slow, deliberate passes that tested balance rather than strength. Every hour they asked to train. He says he must keep pace with Arya. Catelyn followed his line of sight. Their devotion is sweet, she said, though concern thinned her voice. But Tywin Lannister does not send sweet things. We must consider sending the children to White Harbor or the Vale. Arya would climb out a window before the gates closed. Ned exhaled frost. And Sansa's heart is already half at court. I cannot uproot them while rumors swirl. Better to keep our pack together. Then? Catelyn's gaze lingered on Gendry's broad back, shirt dark with sweat, then drifted to the silhouette of their daughter perched on a windowsill above the yard. Arya watching, one knee pulled to her chest. Those two grow closer each day. So must we, Ned replied, fingers closing around hers. If storms break, I will need your voice as well as your courage. Below, the clang of practice blades rang out, a tempered rhythm that echoed beyond stone. Inside the armory's glowing mouth, Mikken fed blackwood into the forge, coaxing the coals until they roared a molten orange. Gendry guided a strip of red-hot steel to the anvil, while Arya worked the bellows. Each pump sent sparks swirling up the chimney like fireflies. Sweat beaded along Gendry's cheek and ran the length of his jaw. He grinned at Arya through the shimmer. Your turn. She hefted the hammer, too large for any other girl of 10 and 5, yet balanced in her grip. With practiced economy she struck the billet. Ringing blows married her cadence to the forge's breath, and the metal flattened, edges smooth under Gendry's guiding tongs. Think this guard will fit needle? She asked. Needs a hair more flare at the quillins. Gendry dipped the half-shaped crossguard into flux. Another pass. Arya obliged. Sparks flew. The smell of hot iron and pine pitch mingled. When at last the piece cooled dark, Gendry compared it to Needle's slim tang. Perfect, he decided. Arya sheathed her blade with a satisfied snort. Told you I could forge fine work. He wiped his brow. You keep surprising me. She set the hammer down carefully, eyes intent on him. We keep surprising each other. That's good. Means we're alive. Gendry opened his mouth to answer, but Mikken's heavy boots clomped near. Enough for tonight. Steel must rest. Same as bones. Go wash and eat before cook skins me. They left the forge, shoulders brushing. The night air slapped them cool, and Arya laughed. An irrepressible burst that rolled across the courtyard like foxfire. Gendry felt something tighten in his chest that no hammer could loosen. Far away, in the gilded maze of King's Landing, Tyrion Lannister kicked mud from his boots and cursed every rut in the King's Road. His party had reached the city gates at sunset after 10 days hard, riding from Casterly Rock. Now he sat in his solar adjoining the Tower of the Hand with a roll of parchment Ned Stark had sent south by swift raven. The northern handwriting was crisp, devoid of embellishment. Words chosen like stones for a wall. Proof of an assassin bearing lion coin. A warning of Sellswords near the twins. An accusation that someone sought Robert's bastard son. Tyrion sipped sour Dornish red and mused. Father will not like this. Cersei will like it less. He cracked his knuckles. It was one thing to know the queen schemed, quite another to see her pawns stumble so publicly. Worst, the parchment hinted Ned had allies in Stannis and Renly both. He imagined 3 Baratheon brothers arrayed in judgment, antlered shadows stretching long across court. A knock rattled the door. Varys slid inside. Ah, my lord, you wear weariness like a borrowed cloak. May I recommend lavender oil for the bath? Spare me sense. Why was I not told of a bungled attempt on Stark's new prince? Ben? The spider clasped silken hands. Certain tidings travel slower than others. The north is far, the neck unforgiving, and ravens can lose their way in storm clouds. Cut the feathers, Varys. Tyrion tossed the scroll atop a pile of ledgers. Does my sister mean to start a war over a smith's hammer? Varys' eyes flickered. Not a hammer, my lord. A claim. Should King Robert perish, 7 forbid, the realm will look to his heirs. Bastard blood may prove inconvenient to some. Tyrion drained his cup. Inconvenient to everyone, if a wolf cub marries the bastard. Enough antlers and direwolves could gore a lion. He rubbed his temples. I need a fast ship. I would speak with Robert before vaults of wildfire ignite. Varys bowed. I shall procure sails swift as gossip. And find me every scrap you can about Lord Walder Frey's latest guests. Tyrion rolled his shoulders. If anyone sells passage through the neck, it will be him. Though he might deliver your head in a pie, if the price is right. Varys' smile was thin as parchment. I shall set my little birds to sing. At the Twins, Lord Walder Frey presided over yet another feast in the East Tower Hall, surrounded by wives, young as granddaughters and sons, hunched like ravens. A Lannister envoy occupied the guest dais, golden lions embroidered on scarlet cloaks. Sir Meryn Trant's failure had left Cersei hungry for a subtler knife, and gold had found its way into Frey coffers. Walder raised a goblet and complained of gout as he considered the Lannister proposal. A band of wedding minstrels, wagons laden with trade silk, and 30 troopers disguised as merchants seeking northern markets. Their true aim? To snatch Gendry Baratheon on his next progress along the King's Road. Walder licked grease from his fingers. A risky tune, he rasped. If Lord Stark learns I loaned his road to lions, my tolls may dry up. The envoy slid a ruby-topped pin across the table. Or double, my lord. Think. When Baratheon and Stark find their pup stolen, they will offer ransom. You collect from both. A lord cannot have too many friends. And no. Walder's milky eyes gleamed covetously. He summoned a scribe to draft guest rights in invisible ink, then bade the envoy share bread and salt, for appearances. In the rafters, mice nibbled crumbs. Unseen witnesses to a betrayal hatched beneath carved stone. On the wall, the wind sang a harsher song. Jon Snow stood watch atop the king's tower, black cloak snapping as he scanned the snowy abyss northward. Ghost padded beside him, red eyes reflecting starlight. The world was white, silent, vast. Yet an unease shivered under Jon's skin. Ravens had come from Winterfell bearing tidings of assassins and marching sellswords. He longed to ride south and place himself between Arya and danger, but vows clamped him like chains of ice. Samwell Tarly joined him, cheeks ruddy beneath fur hood. Jon, Maester Aemon wants your counsel. More wildling fires sighted west of the Milkwater. Fires in spring? Jon frowned. They gather earlier every year. Sam hugged arms. Rangers think Mance Rayder means to cross in force. If the realm splits over succession, the wall may stand alone. Dandero. Jon's gaze drifted beyond the frozen forest toward an unseen horizon. The realm has never truly stood with us, he muttered, but his thoughts were on Winterfell, on a wolf girl who twirled needle under torchlight. Spring tightened its grip on the north. Buds swelled on leafless branches, spiking fragrance into the chill. Yet war mists thickened. Ravens flitted between keep and holdfast like dark omens. At dawn one came bearing Stannis Baratheon's personal seal, a fiery heart pierced by stag. Ned read the parchment in the God's Wood while Gendry and Arya waited beneath boughs. Lord Eddard Stark, I have heard of my brother's bastard fostered in your walls, and the Queen's attempt upon his life. I will not suffer Robert's seed to be culled at Cersei's whim. Should you need strength, the ships of Dragonstone are yours. Stannis Baratheon. P.S. I enclose proof of Cersei's infidelities, and her children's true sire. Use wisely. Ned closed his eyes. The scroll's final pages bore hand-copied entries from Robert's Book of Lineages, detailing the dark hair and blue eyes of Baratheon seed. Traits absent in Prince Joffrey. It was treason stamped in ink. Gendry shifted, sensing gravity. Bad news? Ned let winter sunlight spill across the parchment until the ink glimmered. Truth, he said quietly. A heavy truth. Arya bristled. We won't hide, father. No, Ned agreed. But we will prepare. He folded the letter. Gendry, I would have you and Arya ride to White Harbor within the fortnight. Lord Manderley can keep you safe aboard his fleet should the neck close. Now, I won't leave Winterfell, Arya protested. This is not forever, Ned soothed. It is caution. If I must ride south with Robb, I will know you are beyond the Queen's reach. Gendry laid a hand upon Arya's shoulder. We'll come back. Iron needs quenching, but it returns to the forge. Arya's jaw tightened, yet she nodded. Tyrion's galley, the Emp's Delight, cut through choppy green waters toward Dragonstone. Sea spray salted his beard as black sails bellied overhead. Beside him stood Davos Seaworth, returned from White Harbor after delivering tokens of trust. Davos kept one hand on the rail, looking homesick for onion rations. Will Stannis receive us? Tyrion asked. Depends on what gifts you bear, Davos replied. Proof of Cersei's plotting for one, and a proposal. If Robert dies, Gendry may sit Storm's End with Arya as lady. Stannis keeps Dragonstone and claims the Iron Throne until Gendry comes of age. The North swears loyalty for Baratheon blood. Everyone gains, except my sister. Davos' brows lifted. Does Tywin Lannister approve? Tywin approves of advantages. If Cersei's follies risk the Rock's wealth, father will trade sisters for gold. Davos squinted at the volcanic spires of Dragonstone looming through mist. You play steep dice, my lord. Tyrion chuckled. I prefer loaded dice. At Winterfell, the courtyard thrummed with departure. Packhorses stamped. Ravens cawed. Boys ran messages. Arya tightened a leather jerkin over her riding surcoat, while Gendry slung a smith's hammer across his back. Sansa embraced her sister, whispering admonitions to behave ladylike. Arya stuck out her tongue, but squeezed Sansa's hands before mounting her grey gelding. Bran rode with them, perched in a padded basket across Hodor's broad shoulders. 24 guards in direwolf livery formed column. Catelyn kissed her daughter's brow. White Harbor is strong. Lord Wyman will treat you as honored kin. Arya turned stubborn eyes on Gendry, then Ned. We come back soon. As soon as the roads are safe, Ned vowed. The gatehouse chain rattled. Portcullis rose. Hooves clattered onto the drawbridge. From atop the battlements, Robb lifted a horn to his lips, sounding a clear note that shivered across the valley. Farewell, but not goodbye. Arya straightened in the saddle, heart drumming. Gendry nudged his destrier to match pace, hand brushing her boot. Southward they rode, dreams of White Harbor's tall masts beckoning like distant beacons. 3 days into the journey, the road curved through tall pines near the Barrowlands. Snowmelt trickled in narrow rills beneath roots. The guard captain ordered a brief halt at dusk. Arya dismounted and walked among hush of branches, Ghost padding at her side. Jon had sent the direwolf to protect her. Twilight painted the world indigo when Ghost's ears pricked. Hackles rose. Steel hissed. Shapes emerged among trees, figures in half armor, cloaks patched with autumn leaves. One hefted a crossbow. Arya's breath caught. Stand aside, girl. A gruff voice. We've business with a bastard boy. Ravens exploded from branches. Arya whistled sharply. Guards raced from the camp. Gendry's hammer flashed as he crashed through underbrush to her side. The crossbow fired. Ghost leapt, bolt grazing fur and burying in dirt. Gendry swung. His hammer caved a bandit's helm, sending him spinning. Arya darted low, needle thrusting between mail links. The woods erupted in shouting. Steel on steel, wolf snarls. When quiet fell, 5 assailants lay broken or bleeding. 2 fled into darkness. Gendry wiped blade on moss. Cersei's coin travels quick. Arya's pulse hammered. She bent to pull the crossbow bolt from the soil. Fletching dyed crimson and gold. She held it up for the captain. We keep riding. Faster, D. Bedin. The column doubled pace, torches bobbing like fire spirits down the King's Road. And narrow eyes tracked them from shadowed ridges, counting numbers, measuring fear. At White Harbor Lighthouse, Wyman Manderley welcomed the company with bluster and sweet oat cakes. His hall smelled of roasting cod and cinnamon. Beneath crystal chandeliers he pressed Arya to sing northern ballads and cajoled Gendry to inspect the harbor smithies. A fleet must be shod like a warhorse, he declared. jowls quivering. And warhorses eat coin. Yet even Wyman's joviality could not mask tension. Sea Lord's men scoured docks at night. Watchfires gleamed thrice, bright along the city walls. Messages poured in. Frey patrols thickening. Lannister gold, moving east. Wyman met with Glover envoys. And Reed boatmen, in secret chambers, hung with faded banners. Gendry overheard snatches. Greywater Watchmarsh raiders harassing southbound barges. Clans of the mountains alerted to lion riders. One misty dawn, Arya joined Gendry atop the lighthouse balcony. Ships' masts forested the harbor. Sails furled. Sometimes I think the world strings all tug at Winterfell, she said, chin on arms. But it's like Mom says, we make a net by holding knots firm. Gendry tapped the iron stag at his throat, and hammering them shut. He turned to her, voice low. When your father marches south, I'll ride at his side. Only if I ride too, Arya shot back. He laughed. You will. I've sparred you. If I tried to leave you behind, you'd club me unconscious and follow anyway. Arya considered, then grinned. You know me. Their laughter floated on gull cries above the slate-green sea. South of the neck, Tyrion, Braavos and Stannis huddled in Dragonstow's war room. Ashy light from volcanic vents painted the painted table in lurid red. Stannis' fingers stabbed at the Blackwater Delta. If Robert falls, Joffrey will never sit that throne unchallenged. But open war against the Lannisters invites ruin. Tyrion leaned on a carved wave. Hence my proposal. Present these scrolls, he tapped a satchel, to Robert firsthand. Let him confront Cersei. No war, just a royal writ legitimizing Gendry. Then a betrothal, a settlement of succession, and the Iron Throne remains Baratheon. Stannis' jaw flexed. Robert won't swallow treason against his queen. Robert will swallow anything with enough wine. I'll pour it. Tyrion smirked. Besides, the Seven knows Cersei deserves her reckoning. Davos cleared throat. And if Robert refuses? Then we release the lineage proofs to the Lords Paramount. Tyrion shrugged. Let the realm decide whose blood binds crowns. Stannis studied Tyrion's mismatched eyes. You gamble with kingdoms, dwarf. Better than burning them with wildfire, good brother. Stannis' mouth twitched, perhaps the ghost of a grin. I will sail at once to the capital. Capital. King's Landing baked beneath an unseasonable heat. Robert Baratheon lay in the small hall, sweating gin and pork grease while Grand Master Pycelle fussed with syrups. Cersei hovered nearby, voice honeyed poison. When a steward announced Lord Tywin's envoy arrived with urgent tidings, Robert groaned. Send him in. But gods help him if he brings more bad news. Tyrion entered, dusty from voyage, bows dripping courtesy. He pressed scrolls into Robert's meaty hands. Words from the north, your grace, and from Dragonstone. Robert's eyes narrowed. He cracked seals, scanning lines that slashed sobriety across his features. His breath hissed. Cersei, he rumbled. Fetch Joffrey. The queen's smile faltered. He trains with Sir Boros. Fetch him. Robert's bellow rattled goblets. Tyrion's heart drummed. In that instant, he glimpsed a realm pivot. If Robert named Gendry publicly, Cersei might flee. Tywin might rally. But blood could stay sheathed. Alternatively, the world might ignite. Pycelle dabbed sweat from Robert's brow. Perhaps your grace should rest. Rest? Robert surged to feet. Scrolls fluttering. I'll rest when lies stop breeding in my bed. Cersei's eyes flashed. What lies? Do you doubt the honor of your queen? I doubt the color of my son's hair. Robert's words landed like hammer blows. All my bastards share mine, coal and storm. And yet Joff wears Lannister gold. Silence roared. Tyrion felt heat of a dozen glances. He had thrown dice. Now they rolled. Cersei drew herself tall. We will discuss this in private, husband. We will discuss it before the realm if need be. Robert gestured to the envoy. Summon the lords. Summon the High Septon. By day's end, we will know the shape of truth. Bah. He turned on his wife. And gods help any who plotted against my blood. At Riverrun, Hoster Tully's health waned. Yet Catelyn's Uncle Brynden Blackfish rode in bearing messages from White Harbor. He found Robb drilling men in the yard, Grey Wind stalking shadows. Brynden pulled him aside. Your sisters reached port safely, but fray riders harry wagons north of the Twins. Walder plays both banks again. Robb's freckled brow creased. We must force his choice. Then draw swords or send ravens. But choose swift, boy. The Riverlands watch. Then shall. Robb glanced toward the great hall where banners of trout and direwolf mingled. I write father tonight. If he commands, we march. He stroked Grey Wind's ruff. The direwolf's yellow eyes reflected flickers of torchlight. Restless, hungry. Night receded over Winterfell. Ned knelt in the crypts beside his brother's statue. Lord Brandon's stone sword clutched across cold knees. Candles sputtered, casting faces of dead kings into dancing relief. He prayed silently to unnamed gods, that the realm hold another day without shattering. Footsteps echoed. Maester Luwin descending. A raven from King's Landing. The maester offered the scroll, his hand trembling. Wax bore Baratheon Stag. Ned broke it and read. His shoulders sagged. Robert demanded his presence at court within a fortnight to witness pronouncements regarding succession. Luwin waited. Shall I prepare letters? Yes. Ned's voice husked. Send word to Riverrun. Robb will ride south with me. Summon bannermen to Winterfell. And send another raven to White Harbor. Instruct Lord Manderley to keep my daughter and her betrothed on board a war galley. If tides shift dark, sail them to Braavos. And, Luwin swallowed. Braavos, my lord. Across the narrow sea lies refuge beyond Lannister reach. Ned closed his eyes. If lions storm the gates, wolves must swim. On the deck of Manderley galley Maiden's favor, Arya savored sea spray under a gauzy dawn. Gendry leaned on the rail beside her. White Harbor's beacon dwindled astern. Do you think father's proud of us? She asked. He must be. Gendry replied, brushing wind-tossed hair from her cheek. He trusts us to face open water. Starks are winter wolves. They don't like leaving land. Bender. Arya kicked heel against the rail. Do Baratheons like the sea? They ride storms, he said. She smiled. Then we'll ride storms together. Below, sailors hauled crimson-striped sails. Above, gulls wheeled, crying warning or blessing. The galley's prow sliced foam and bent toward the wider world, bearing two young hearts hammered in secret forge fires of fate. Behind them, the north gathered breath. Ahead, the south bristled like a boar cornered. But in that narrow, bright moment, Arya and Gendry stood undaunted, wind and salt tangling their hair. Eyes fixed on horizons neither had dared imagine, yet. And the Game of Thrones churned on, unseen currents colliding beneath sun-sparked waves, drawing every heart and hammer toward the hour when promises of iron and ice would meet the test of fire and crown. Pa. Night washed indigo across the shivering sea, turning the waters beneath the Maiden's favor to molten glass. The galley's single lanterns were hooded to slits, revealing only brief crescents of gold that slithered over wet planks before vanishing again. Arya Stark perched on the forecastle rail with needle balanced across her knees, watching how the bow sliced the dark. Each slap of wave against oak sounded like a muted drum. An echo of Winterfell's heartbeat carried leagues from home. Gendry Baratheon. Hay still struggled to think of himself as anything but Waters, worked quietly beside her, tightening a rivet on the iron stag sigil that now adorned the galley's prow. He had forged it that afternoon from scrap anchor chain, heating each link in a makeshift deck forge stoked by driftwood and barrel staves. The ache in his shoulders was a familiar companion, as welcome as the sea breeze that cooled the sweat on his skin. He straightened at last and brushed metal filings from his palms. You should try to sleep, he said, voice pitched low so as not to carry aft. Arya shook her head. Dreams feel slippery out here. I like listening. To the waves? To everything. She tipped her chin toward the moon. thin as a reaper's grin. When it hides, you can almost taste how big the world is. Gendry followed her gaze, then glanced aft where Lord Wyman's guards kept watch, cloaks snapping sharp. Somewhere beneath decks, Bran's soft snores mingled with Hodor's gentle humming. The sailors spoke in hushed murmish, gambling oyster shells for copper buttons. Every creak of rigging felt amplified by the hush of open water. "I keep thinking of father," Arya murmured. "He'll ride into that red viper's nest alone. Robbed too." "Not alone," Gendry reminded gently. "Grey wind at his heel and half the north behind. And lions in front." She flexed gloved fingers. "If they harm him, they won't." He touched the pommel of his blade, the new longsword he had named Hearthflame for the glow it captured when freshly quenched. "Because we will cut them off at the knees if they try." Arya managed a thin smile. "You and me against the realm then." "I'd say the realm doesn't stand a chance." She laughed, startled by how light it felt leaving her chest. The ship's lantern lit half of Gendry's face, and for a moment she saw not a smith's apprentice, or even a would-be lord, but a bright coal hammered into a blade. He would never wear gold filigree or silk doublets with ease. His hands were too scarred, his shoulders too broad. Yet there was something unpolished in him that fit her own sharp edges precisely. A gull shrieked overhead, startling them both. They craned upward. Gulls this far north often meant land. Arya's pulse quickened. "Braavos. Or a lonely rock," Gendry said. "Still, we'll make landfall soon. Wyman's master-at-arms said we'd sight the Titan inside a week." "Gah." He peered past the rail. The dark hid everything but a faint lighter smear on the horizon. Mist or cliff, impossible to tell. Arya slid from the rail and sheathed needle. "I'll fetch us some hot broth," Gendry offered. "You keep watch." She nodded, and he disappeared down the stairwell. Boots ringing on iron. Alone, Arya closed her eyes and inhaled brine so deeply it stung. Memories of Winterfell drifted. Wolf pups in frosted grass. Jon's laughter as he tossed snowballs. The smoky aroma of Summerhall wood on Hearthstone. She imagined father reading by candlelight, lips moving in silent prayer, and wished she'd hugged him tighter at the gate. Wind caught her hair, tugging strands free. She whispered a silent promise into the dark. "I will return." A wolf always finds her den. The deck underfoot lurched suddenly. A sailor cursed, rope whirring across cleats. Arya grabbed the rail as the galley heeled portside. A dull thump reverberated through timbers, something heavy striking hull. Another thud followed, closer. Shouts erupted amidships. She darted along the forecastle, eyes straining. Off starboard a shape moved on the water, low and swift. A skiff painted dull gray, oars muffled. Shadows crouched inside, bows drawn. An arrow hissed overhead, thunking into mast. "Boarders!" Arya yelled, voice cracking with urgency. "To arms!" More arrows answered her cry, peppering the deck. Sailors grabbed belaying pins. Wyman's guards unsheathed steel. The skiff swept alongside and grappling irons soared. Hooks clanging onto rail. Figures in patchwork armor scrambled up ropes like spiders, knives clenched in teeth. One dropped before Arya with a wet slap of boots. He was lean, red-bearded, eyes glinting amber behind a salt-crusted visor. Without pausing, he whipped a dirk toward her. Arya spun aside. The blade kissed air. She lashed out with needle. Sliding under his guard to prick thigh. "Steel bit," he grunted. She ducked another slash, drove her point into the man's forearm as he overcommitted. Blood spurted black in moonlight. He fell back spurting curses. Another assailant vaulted the rail behind her, broad-shouldered, brandishing a short-hafted axe. Arya pivoted, but a forge hammer streaked over her shoulder and smashed into the attacker's temple with a sound like cracking melon. The axeman toppled. Gendry wrenched his hammer free and planted himself at Arya's side. "Stay close," he panted. Needle and hammer danced. The deck became a chaos of shouts, steel clang, splintering wood. Guards rallied, pushing boarders toward rail, but more ropes climbed. Arya glimpsed Wyman Manderley at quarterdeck, his girth sheathed in whale-hide vest, brandishing a partisan and bellowing for crossbows. Bolts whirred downward, skewering raiders as they scrambled. One enemy vaulted clear of the melee, darting toward hatchways. His cloak flickered crimson, a Lannister red beneath grime. He moved snake quick, a small dark pouch clutched in hand. Arya felt cold recognition. Assassin, not pirate. She tore after him, boots sliding on wet planks. He ducked under a spar and plunged down companionway to cargo hold. Arya followed, footfalls echoing in narrow stairwell. The hold stank of tar and grain. Crates formed crooked aisles. The assassin's shadow flickered between barrels heading toward Bran's cabin. Arya's chest tightened. Bran slept unguarded save Hodor. She skidded around a corner as the man reached the cabin door, dagger poised. Ghost erupted from shadows, teeth flashing. His tackle slammed the assassin into a cask. Steel clattered. The wolf worried at the man's arm till bone crunched. The assassin screamed. A second blade flashed in his free hand, stabbing at Ghost. Fur parted, but Ghost's jaws closed on throat. Blood gurgled. Arya thrust needle through kidney for good measure. The man spasmed, eyes wide, then sagged. Ghost released, panting low. Arya stroked his ruff. Warm blood slicked her glove. Hodor's voice boomed inside the cabin, alarmed. Bran's higher voice answered. Arya kicked the corpse away from the door. "It's done," she called. "Stay inside with Hodor." Ghost growled approval and bounded up the stairwell. Arya followed on trembling legs. Topside the fight ebbed. Boarders lay strewn across deck or bobbed in black water. Two of Wyman's guards lay still, throats slashed. Sailors cut grapple lines. The skiff drifted, carrying 3 fugitives rowing frantically. Crossbow bolts hissed, and one oarsman toppled backward, oar spinning loose. Gendry stood amid bodies, hammerhead dripping. He spotted Arya and exhaled in relief. She crossed to him, wiping gore from needle. "I'm all right," she said before he could ask. "They aimed for Bran. And likely you and me as well." He scanned the carnage. Lannister coin for certain. Lord Wyman lumbered downstairs to inspect the fallen, panting like a sealskin bellows. "My sweet fish pies, they nearly gutted us," he wheezed. "First fray riders, now Selsail scum. The South truly hungers for Baratheon blood." Gendry planted the hammer. "Repairs?" "Minor," Wyman said. "Their vessel rammed us light. Hull holds. We sail at dawn." Bosun's mates already shifted corpses, heaving them into sea. Sea lapped hungrily. Arya watched a boot sink beneath ripples, and wondered whether the king's coin still gleamed within the dead's pockets like an accusation. 700 leagues south. Dawn spread pallid light across the Red Keep's towers, gilding arrow slits with rose gold. Eddard Stark rode through Mudgate with Robb and 40 men-at-arms. They had covered leagues at grim pace, leaving most of the northern host encamped 2 days behind at the God's Eye. Ned wished he had time to wash dust from boots before meeting the king, but ravens from Varys had urged haste. Robert ill-tempered, court restless, queen missing from supper. Within the keep's vast courtyard, lines of Lannister crimson lined their path. More guards than usual. Ned dismounted, cloak whipping. Sir Barristan Selmy approached, white cloak immaculate, but worry etched deep around eyes. "Lord Stark, His Grace summons you directly to the throne room. Bring only your eldest." Ned traded look with Robb. The boy's jaw set granite hard. Grey wind trotted close at heel. They entered the echoing hall where the Iron Throne loomed under towering stained glass. Robert Baratheon sat slouched upon steps, crown askew, wine flagon dangling. His face was mottled purple across one cheek, as though struck. On dais tier stood Stannis, Renly, and to Ned's surprise Tyrion Lannister. Beside them, Grand Maester Pycelle clutched a scroll, hands trembling. Robert's gaze lifted. "You came at last, friend." His voice rasped, raw. He drained flagon, tossed it. It clanged down steps. "Hear now what curs drown our crown." Stannis stepped forward, parchment in grip. "We have proof of Joffrey Myrcella and Tommen's bastardy." Their father, Robert snarled. Enough courtly tongue wag. The queen bedded her brother. Spawned serpents. My blood carries only in the boy Gendry, fostered at Winterfell. Acknowledge him now, or face steel. Then Sumao. Ned felt the hall tilt about him. He knelt, one hand to Rob's shoulder to forestall the boy. My king, this truth breaks hearts, but the realm stands more than any one family. We must proceed with care, by grant of the lords. Lords? Robert barked bitter laugh. They cluster like flies around gold. Give them cause and they'll feast on each other. He thrust finger at Stannis. My brother thinks himself heir, yet no man loves his scowl. Renly wants roses shoved up his breeches. Only the north keeps oaths. Bow. He hauled himself upright, stag breastplate gleaming dully. So hear my decree. Gendry Baratheon, of my blood, is declared Lord of Storm's End. Upon his majority he shall take Stark girl Arya to wife, uniting Stag and Wolf. Ned Stark will serve as regent of the Iron Throne until that day. Gasps rippled. Pycelle swayed. Tyrion's brows shot high. Robb squeezed sword pommel. Ned rose slowly. You do me great honor, your grace, yet regency for a bastard lord will invite war? It already has. Robert's shoulders slumped. Cersei fled before dawn, took the children, the hound, half the gold cloaks. Tywin sits at the Golden Tooth mustering. We are past invitations. War feasts at our table. Renly strode forward, green doublet shimmering. Brother, name me protector. Silence. Robert roared. The doors banged wide. Littlefinger hurried in, breathless. Your Grace, apologies. The Queen's banner sails for Dragonstone aboard royal galleys. Red wine fleets block Blackwater in her favor. Robert went still. She means to reach Sunspear, forge Dornish shields. Gods pity them. Stannis' eyes glittered hard. We should have chained her the night you found the truth. Robert wheeled on him. Do not preach. We must act. Ned, summon your Northmen. Renly, ride to Highgarden. Stannis, guard Dragonstone. Tyrion. The dwarf lifted brows. Yes, your grace. Find your father. Tell him I want a parley beneath the banner of peace. We settle this with ink, not blades, if Tywin values his legacy. Tyrion bowed. I will ride immediately. Robert sank back onto steps, weight of crowns dragging him low. Pray the gods listen to ravens. Beyond the narrowing mouth of the narrow sea, the Maiden's favor sighted the Titan 2 mornings later. Dawn rays set the colossal bronze warrior ablaze, its upraised sword burning like newborn sun. Arya gripped rope, netting at prow. Dazzled. Gendry stood behind, equally awed. They passed between the statue's feet, oars dipping in perfect rhythm, drums thudding. Harbor islands unfurled. Spires and domes glittering. Braavosi customs ships hailed them in lyrical Valyrian-tinged common. Wyman's master answered, brandishing letters of safe passage signed by the Sea Lord himself, an old friend of Manderley trade. Even so, black-clad archers lined battlements, bows half-drawn until paperwork satisfied. The galley moored at purple-tiled jetty. Aromas assaulted senses. Saffron, roasted chestnuts, lamprey stewed in wine. Masked Braavos strutted along canals with cloaks flaring like proud sails. Dockhands offloaded cargo, while Wyman fussed over port taxes and fish markets. Bran emerged onto gangplank in a wicker chair borne by Hodor. His eyes shone. Look, Arya, water streets. She grinned. We'll race bison boats tomorrow. Gendry hefted packs onto shoulder. First secure lodging away from prying eyes. Then we find a smithy. His gaze devoured the maze of piazzas, where forge smoke rose alongside incense. Braavosi steel is famed. Wyman's steward led them through archways hung with jade windcatchers into a rented manse overlooking the moon pool. Marble floors glimmered under cut-glass skylights. Arya ran fingertips over mosaic of indigo wolves chasing silver stags embedded in foyer. A good omen, Gendry murmured. Guards sealed gates. Maids lit citron candles. That evening, Wyman hosted a discreet supper of sea bass and persimmon wine. He unrolled maps across table. "We may tarry here a moon while my merchants trade," he explained, wiping butter from chin. "Braavos offers safety unmatched, except perhaps the free city of Loreth, which is dull as a salted cod. But messages will still find us. My ravens speak to White Harbor and to Winterfell by couriers across narrow sea." Arya traced route lines. "And if father summons us, then we sail at once," Wyman vowed. After supper, Gendry and Arya walked balcony overlooking canal. Lanterns bobbed on gondolas, casting water ripples onto stone. A troop of singers meandered, voices weaving minor chords. Farther off, a gaggle of courtesans in feathered masks cackled like bright birds. "It feels unreal," Arya whispered. "But real enough that killers prowled our deck," Gendry countered. "We keep blades near." She tapped, needle's hilt. "Always." A bell tolled from the Palace of Truth far across Lagoon. The hour of ghosts. Gendry leaned on balustrade. "When this ends, would you live here?" Arya thought. The canals, the masks, the sword dancers practicing on moonlit roofs. "For a time," she said. "But my heart's a wolf. Winterfell will always sing loudest." Gendry nodded. "Then I'll build a forge by the hot springs. Steel for you. Swords for our guards." "And crowns?" she teased softly. "Only if we melt them down to nail lion hides to city gates." She laughed quietly and rested her head on his shoulder. In the stillness he smelled charcoal soot and sea salt, and felt an unshakable conviction that no matter which crowns cracked, they would remake the pieces together. In King's Landing, smoke curled from the chimneys of the great septi. Eddard Stark stood before its marble doors, flanked by Sir Jory Castle and Robb. Choirs chanted within, a liturgy for a realm teetering. Ned had come seeking the High Septon's blessing on Robert's decree. If faith lent voice, lords might follow. Inside, incense wreathed pillars. The High Septon met them under a seven-pointed star window, his ornate crystal crown reflecting rainbow fire upon floor mosaics. He listened as Ned described Cersei's adultery and Robert's new heir. Sagging jowls tightened. "This is a grievous revelation, Lord Stark," the Septon intoned. "The people revere their queen, yet truth is mother's milk." "Will you proclaim Robert's writ?" Ned asked. "I must confer with the most devout, but know this, war between lion and stag serves only the stranger." Robb stepped forward. "Your Eminence, Lannister sells words already test northern borders." Peace fades. "Mensual." The Septon regarded him. "Then pray the realm heeds reason." When they left, sunlight felt harsher. Robb exhaled. "Hey, we'll delay." "Delay buys time," Ned murmured. "We must use it." They mounted horses, riding across city toward Tower of the Hand, where Varys awaited with fresh intelligence. Cersei's fleet had indeed reached Sunspear, forging alliance with Prince Doran Martell. Lannister riders encircled Riverrun, testing Tully resolve. And at Harrenhal, Lord Tywin massed 30,000 men. Ned rubbed bridge of nose. "Summon our banners south to Moat Cailin. Command Manderly fleet to linger near the Fingers, ready to ferry men by sea." Varys steepled fingers. "Your Grace Regent, forgive my counsel, but moving Gendry farther from Braavos invites risk." "Braavos stands neutral ground. For now." Ned's gray eyes narrowed. "But neutrality cracks when gold flows. Tywin will buy Titan itself if needed. Keep watch." Robb paced. "We should retrieve Arya. Rally at White Harbor." "Not yet," Ned said. "Their absence shields them. Tywin cannot ransom what he cannot find." Half a moon later, Braavos shimmered in spring rain, rooftops slick as obsidian. Arya rose before dawn each day to study the water dance under a retired bravo named Donato. He charged 2 silvers a lesson but smiled each time needle flicked faster. Gendry spent hours in a waterfront forge run by a Cohoric woman called Nira, learning folded steel secrets. He traced patterns of ripples in damasked blades, mind alight. One gray morning, Bran and Arya wheeled along canals in a narrow skiff piloted by Hodor. Ducklings paddled around, and market bridges bustled overhead with spice vendors. Laughter echoed between marble facades. But peace cracked when a shaggy courier hawked in the sun market. Clutching a grime-stained satchel bearing Stark direwolf seal, he spotted Arya and made for her, breath ragged. Message delivered, he collapsed, arrow protruding from back. Crowd screamed. 2 cloaked men melted away. Ghost gave chase, Arya at heel, bounding across fish stalls, overturning eels. The assassins vaulted barrels, one loosing a dart at Arya. She caught foot on netting, tumbled, felt the dart hiss past to thunk into cask. Ghost tackled nearest pursuer, teeth crunching calf. The second fled across bridge into tangle of alleys. Arya knelt by courier, too late. His lips foamed. Poison. Kyle. She retrieved satchel, heart thundering. Inside lay raven-scrawled parchment. Lord Tywin offers 10,000 gold honors for capture of Gendry Baratheon, alive. Beneath, smaller script. Lannister outriders raid Barrowlands. King Robert wounded boar hunting. Regency contested. Arya's throat closed. She hurried to nearest forge where Gendry hammered a new guard onto hearthflame. Sweat plastered his hair. Sparks wreathed him like fiery halo. She thrust the parchment. He read, eyes hardening. Robert wounded. Contest for throne. He exhaled slow. Tywin must not take us. Wyman convened council that night, in secret chamber, scented with olive oil smoke. Maps unfurled again. If Robert falls, the fat lord rumbled, the lions will roar louder. Dornish spears already glisten for Cersei. Our fleet alone cannot run gauntlet of stepstones. Then we sail west, Arya said. Skirt Skagos. Land at White Harbor Covert. Wyman stroked chin. Longer, stormy air, but fewer spies. Gendry tapped map, eyed. We could swap names. Hire Lyseni captain. Pose as merchant envoy returning north with Braavosi glass. It may work, Wyman allowed. But rookeries talk, so we send decoy. Another ship under Manderley colors east to Pentos, drawing Lannister notice. Meanwhile we slip home in silence. Plans set. They loaded casks of Braavosi purple dye and silk bolts, trade goods as disguise. Donato gifted Arya a pair of thin-spun gloves lined with lead shot to strengthen wrists for water dance. Nira pressed a folded steel dagger into Gendry's hand. Cohoric fire remembers friends, she said. At dawn they boarded Seaspear, a nondescript cog under Lyseni registry. Rain hammered deck. Arya inhaled salt. Ready. Back in Westeros, thunderstorms brooded over the Riverlands. Robb Stark led 3,000 riders toward Harrenhal, intent on shadowing Tywin's host, but avoiding pitched battle until the Northmen converged. Grey Wind scouted ahead, always returning with muzzle-stained rabbit blood. Sir Brynden Blackfish commanded outriders. Flint-eyed, tireless. One night they bivouacked near ruins of an old sept. Within moss-choked walls, candles were lit for a small council. Robb, Brynden, Mage Mormont, Lord Jason Mallister. A raven had arrived. Robert Baratheon lay dying in Maegor's holdfast from boar gash turned septic. Ned Stark named protector of the realm in will, but Queen Cersei held the walls with the Kingsguard and refused. She crowned Joffrey the next morning. Robb's knuckles whitened on sword hilt. They imprison my father even now. Likely, Brynden agreed. Lannisters strike quick. We march on King's Landing, Robb declared. Mallister cautioned. Without infantry you risk open field against Lord Tywin's main host. Then we free Riverrun first, rally Tully lances, cross Blackwater with sails. Robb's voice cracked with youth and fury, but eyes blazed wolf bright. Maeg Mormont smacked fist to chest. The Bear Island rides. We'll answer lion roar with claw. So ravens flew again. Summoning Great John Umber, Galbart Glover, Kerwin of Carhold. Snowmelt swelled rivers, war banners unfurled like grim blossoms. And deep in Rob's tent, by flicker of tallow, he wrote one more letter, addressed to a sister riding unknown seas. Hold fast. The pack gathers. Sea spear rocked through gale off the coast of Bear Island. Rain whipped canvas. Lightning spidered horizon. Arya strapped herself to mast to watch. Storm dancing with ship. Gendry braced beside her, hammer tethered at hip in case rigging snapped. When thunder cracked, she shouted into wind, laughter mixing with roar. He caught her hand, steadying both their hearts. By dawn, storm passed, leaving sky scrubbed blue. Northern coastline loomed. Pine-fringed cliffs, snow still lingering in crevices. Sailors whispered of merling princesses seducing men to icy graves. Arya grinned at the tales. Home waters smelled of cedar and wolf breath. But danger lingered. On third morning past Skago Strait, a war galley bearing crimson-striped sails appeared astern, closing despite sea spears full canvas. Its prow carved white froth, deck bristling crossbows. Wyman's acting captain cursed. Red-wing colors stolen by Lannisters. They mean to claim bounty. He ordered oars down. Sea spear groaned, accelerating, but the galley gained. Sleeker hull, double banks. Between vessels, gulls wheeled shrieking. Gendry and Arya stood stern watch. Gendry asked, "Can we outrun?" "Not before inlet of last river." She scanned waves, measuring. "We fight." She fetched Donato's practice saber, the double-edged Bravo blade, and strapped needle to back for close work. Gendry hefted hearthflame and buckled the Cohoric dagger. As galley drew within bowshot, arrows streaked. Sailors screamed. One tumbled overboard. Sea Spear's lone scorpion fired back, but shot fell short. Grapnels soon followed, metal teeth biting hull. The ships jolted together in spray and splinters. Boarders leapt, men in mismatched plate. A manticore sigil at breast. Their captain wore lion cloak clasp. "Seize the boy," he barked. Arya met first assailant mid-deck, parrying slash, riposting to throat. Blood sprayed, slicking planks. Gendry roared, hammer breaking collarbones. Sailors rallied behind barrels, thrusting spears. Boarders pressed. One lunged at Arya with mace. She skipped aside, weaving water dance steps. Donato drilled, left, under shield. Sting. Needle slid between ribs. She pivoted to deflect another blade. Felt lead-lined glove reinforce wrist. Blade flicking parable arcs. A larger mercenary broke through. Swinging two-hand sword. Gendry met him, catch-on hammer haft. Sparks flew. They traded blows. Wood meeting steel. Finally, Gendry feinted low. Dagger flashing to hamstring. Then hammer uppercut to jaw. Skull cracked. More boarders surged, too many. From forecastle Wyman steward loosed a distress flare. Green fire arrow that screamed skyward. Seconds later, a horn answered across fog. The deep wail call of Manderley war galleon Will of White Knife, escorting grain flotilla. Its triangular sails appeared to port, catapults ready. Seeing reinforcements, border captain shouted retreat. But Sea Spear's crew severed grappling ropes. Two mercenaries toppled into churning gap, sucked under by Hull's kiss. The galley tried to disengage, but Will's catapult boulder crashed through its stern castle. Fire blossomed. Screams followed. Sea Spear limped onward, rigging torn, but alive. Arya wiped blade on rag, adrenaline still buzzing. Gendry found her, eyes searching for hurt. She shook head. Together, they watched red-striped galley burn. Black smoke staking claim to sky. The sea swallowed embers. At Riverrun's siege lines, horns blared dawn assault. Northern columns drove Lannister levies against burned wheat fields. Brynden Blackfish led vanguard, banners snapping trout with direwolf overlay. Arrows hissed. Riverrun's portcullis rose. Tully knights charged to meet kin. Amid clash, Great John Umber tackled bannerman bearing Lion's standard, tearing it in teeth while roaring like a berserker. Robb rode through breach amid thunder of hooves. He spied Sir Jaime Lannister rallying guard near Weirwood Copse. They locked eyes, gold against gray. Swords flashed. Jaime spurred forward, but Mallister riders cut between. Chaos swallowed. Hours later, siege lines shattered. Combatants counted dead under weeping sky. Robb accepted Riverrun's lordly embrace from Edmure, while Brynden chained captured Ser Adam Marbrand. But Jaime had slipped away with 200 heavy horse, heading south along the Tumblestone. Ravens soared with victory and warning. The young wolf had bared fangs. At White Harbor, Seaspear docked under cloak of night. Gendry and Arya disembarked, dressed as deckhands, slipping through wareyard shadows. Ghost padded sentinel. Bran remained aboard, bound for Hornwood keep where letter from Lord Rickard Kerwin promised refuge until snows. Inside Wyman's stone-walled solar, ravens awaited. Robert Baratheon dead, Ned Stark imprisoned, Joffrey crowned, Lord Tywin's army marching for the Trident. The news struck like mace. Arya's hands shook. "They've caged father." "We break bars," Gendry vowed. Wyman exhaled through gut. Winterfell now seat of Warhost. Robb calls banners to Riverrun victorious. "Our fleet departs dawn carrying grain to Moat Cailin." Arya straightened. "We sail with them. I will see Winterfell before marching south." "Then one day." "Agreed," Gendry said. Wyman nodded, eyes earnest behind layers of flesh. "But the Queen's bounty triples. I advise alternate route. Travel inland along Wolf's Den Road. My cousin Sir Marlon leads escort." Arya accepted. She would never cower behind high walls while her family's fate wavered. The Wolf's Road called. In dungeons under Maegor's holdfast, Eddard Stark knelt, wrists chained to wall. Torch drippings hissed on stone, mixing rancid tallow with damp. Varys arrived ghost-like, keys jangling. "My lord, time dwindles." Robb crosses twins. Tywin marches east. "Cersei demands your confession by Moon's turn, or Sansa dies." "Then?" Ned's head lifted slowly. "What news of Arya?" Varys hesitated. "Unconfirmed. Some say she fled north, others that she hides in city. I fear rumor." Ned's jaw tightened. "She lives." The old gods whisper. The eunuch sighed. "Your hope is stubborn as winter frost. Yet hope may buy you breath. Confess treason, bend knee, serve as steward to Joffrey. Your daughter's spared." "My honor would bleed." "Honor feeds no girl." Varys pressed parchment into Ned's hand. A quill scribble from Sansa begging father to yield so she might wed Joffrey and heal realm. Tear stains blurred words. Ned turned scroll slowly. "I will consider." Varys melted back into gloom. Slippers silent. Alone. Ned bowed head. Tears unshed. In darkness he mouthed names. Cat, Robb, Sansa, Bran, Rickon, Jond. Arya last. A whispered sword point. He pictured her fierce grin, hammering crossguard beside Gendry. If bending knee spared them, perhaps Winter Wolf must bow. Briefly. North again, Arya and Gendry traveled by covered wagon, under pretense of merchants bearing seal pelts. Ghost trotted perimeter. Road carved through birch groves tinged gold. They camped among mossy cairns, sharing oatcakes, recalling Braavos like dream. One dusk, fireside quiet, Arya asked, "If father bends knee to spare us, should we accept?" Gendry poked embers. "A broken wolf still bites. He'll rise again." She hugged knees. "We help him rise. By forging alliances." He met her eyes. "Starks, Baratheons, maybe Tullys and Manderleys too. If we marry soon, lords might rally behind new banner while elder kings claw each other." "Dane." Arya's heart stuttered. "You propose in war camp." "I propose wherever sky stands above us." He pulled small ring from pouch. Simple iron band, twisted with silver wire. I forged this at Nearus, iron for strength, silver for memory. Will you bind houses now, not someday? She stared at ring, glinting ember light. Duty warred with wildness, but both pointed same direction, toward him and the promise of a pack enduring. She slipped ring on finger. It fit snug, warm from his palm. Yes, she whispered. He exhaled shaky laugh and pressed forehead to hers. In that hush, wolves howled far off, as if giving blessing. Moat Caelan's peat-reeking ramparts came into view weeks later, banners of flayed man and leaping trout whipping alongside direwolf. Inside marsh ring towers, Robb Stark held war council. Greyjohn boomed greeting when Arya and Gendry entered hall. Robb embraced Arya fiercely, relief softening war-etched face. Grey Wind sniffed Gendry, then barked approval. Plans unfurled. They would march south by the King's Road to confront Jaime before he could relieve King's Landing. Manderley fleet sailed south along coast to harry Lannisport supply lines. Baratheon garrison at Storm's End wavered. Gendry's name carried weight. The lords debated late, torches guttered. Finally Robb proclaimed, "At dawn we march. But tonight we celebrate bonds newly forged." He gestured to Sister and Smith. Hall erupted in cheers. Mage Mormont thumped tankard. Even taciturn Roose Bolton's lips twitched. A quick wedding followed, witnessed by Hearttree in Moat Isle, a half-ruined weirwood whose face eroded, yet eyes still bled. Sap. Gendry and Arya placed hands in pooled water, tinged red. Robb spoke vows learned from father. When they kissed, freckles of sunlight broke cloud and set amber blood river aglow. Feasting erupted in main tower. Venison, boar, lamprey pies. Arya downed mead, cheeks flush. Gendry danced awkwardly, hammer set aside for once. Their ringed hands never strayed far. Later, alone on parapet overlooking mist-filled bog, Arya traced silver in iron band. Married in ruin, marching to war. Better than married in King's Court, dancing to lyres, Gendry said. She laughed soft, then serious. If we fall, we won't. But if, then others will carry banner. He touched direwolf's stag brooch newly forged for his cloak. Steel outlives us. She rested head on his chest, listening to steady thrum. In distant dark, torchlines hinted armies stirring. The north walking to war beneath twin sigils of wolf and stag crossing antlers. Winterfell's godswood stood silent beneath early snowfall, when message arrived by crow. Ned Stark to confess treason in Great Sept and bend knee to Joffrey. Arya read the copy aloud to Robb. His knuckles whitened, grief warred with rage. Gendry caught her after. Your father chooses peace to spare you. We must honor his risk. I won't watch him die for lies. She paced. We reach capital in 2 moons. If Queen harms him before, then we carve path. He tightened sword belt. And show realm what true Baratheon steel looks like. King's Landing day of confession dawned oppressive. Crowds packed Beelers, Sept Plaza. Sun beat down on domes. On steps, royal dais gleamed. Joffrey sat in golden armor too large. Cersei, cold and luminous, flanked by Pycelle and Kingsguard. Eddard Stark was dragged forth, beard scraggly, weight lost. Shackles clinked. Sansa sobbed behind throne. Townsfolk jeered traitor. Ned scanned throng hoping for glimpse of Arya, but found only faces melted by heat. He knelt, voice hoarse, confessing treason as scripted by Varys, claiming he conspired with Stannis to steal throne. Murmurs surged. High Septon intoned absolution, if mercy granted. Cersei exhaled relief. Her plan to send Ned to black cells achieved. But Joffrey stood, voice shrill. My mother begs mercy, but traitor's life is forfeit. Bring me his head. Gasps. Dottle. Cersei whirled, horror struck. Sir Ilyn Payne strode forward, unsheathing ice. Ned shut eyes, silent prayer to old gods, protect them. Across plaza a dove fluttered skyward. Axe fell. And the Game of Thrones shuddered irrevocably. In swamps of Southern Neck, news galloped on breathless horse to Robb's column. Banner-bearer delivered parchment to Lord Karstark, who delivered to Robb. The young wolf opened, face draining. He read aloud. Joffrey cuts Lord Eddard's head. Arya's knees buckled. Gendry caught her. A howl ripped from grey wind echoed by entire host, as word spread like wildfire. Men beat shields. Women wept. Robb's voice cracked, ordering halt. That night under weeping willows, Arya knelt beside small campfire, eyes dry, heart molten. Gendry knelt too, wrapped cloak around them both. He died to save us, she whispered. He died because lions feared truth, Gendry answered. She drew needle, planting tip into dirt. Flames danced, reflected on steel. Tears finally fell. Then we give them fear greater. We take throne, burn their lies to ash. Gendry met her gaze. We forge a kingdom where wolves and stags stand equal. She nodded, stood, raised needle skyward. Around campfires men watched, and one by one swords lifted, points catching starlight. The roar began low, building through throats. Northern, River, Manderley, even Karstark. Wolves howled. Stags blared on horns. A chant surged. King in the north. And the storm. Robb strode to sister's side, drawing sword. House Stark fights, but House Baratheon's true blood stands with us. Kneel to King Robb, protector of north and storm. Gendry dropped to knee, offering sword. I pledge. Hosts knelt. The sound thundered like breaking ice shelves. In that charged night 2 banners were sewn together. Direwolf rampant on field of grey, stag rampant on field of black, bound by red border signifying shared blood spilled. Under it, grief hardened to purpose. War's tide turned anew, and the north marched with storms at its back. Weeks dwindled into running battles skirting fields of golden wheat now trampled. Jaime Lannister's outriders clashed at Sowy's Horn. Roose Bolton feigned retreat, lured them into bear traps strung with rope nets. Gendry rode in vanguard, hammer-shattering shields. Arya led light horse scouts, needle flickering like silver flame. Songs began to spread. Of the wolf girl bride, of the hammer prince, of the twin heirs to winter and storm. At Maidenpool, they liberated stockades filled with small folk, condemned by Lannister levies. One girl knelt before Arya, pressing ragdoll into her hands. For the lady who brings spring. She whispered. Arya kept doll tucked into saddlebag thereafter, a reminder of realm beyond steel. Robb convened war council in burnt Septi Tata. 2 in camps at Crossroads Keep. We march night and strike before dawn. Lords murmured assent. Gendry traced map lines. Arya eyed routes for flank. That evening Gendry found her leaning on parapet. Sea wind replaced by wheat dusk air. Tomorrow shapes kingdoms, he said. Tomorrow shapes vengeance, she replied. But then, Father would counsel justice over vengeance. He'd counsel strength tempered by honor. Gendry rested hand over hers. We will reclaim honor, she exhaled. With you, I can bear weight. At dawn drums rolled. Wolves howled. And the dire wolf stag banner rose into peach sky, edges snapping like eager blades. Crossroads Keep battle raged 2 days. Arrow storms darkened sun. Siege towers burned. Arya led infiltration through Postern Gate at night, scaling ivy-laced walls with small cadre of water dancers. Braavos sells words hired by Wyman on promise of double pay and northern songs. They slipped along crenellations, silent as mist, felling sentries. Gendry smashed portcullis chains from inside, letting Robb's cavalry flood courtyard. Tywin fought like man 20 years younger, cutting down tall-hard bannermen. But Greatjon engaged, axes whirling. Meanwhile, Arya confronted Ser Meryn Trant near inner stairs. Needle met longsword, sparks hissed. She ducked overhead swing. Sliced hamstring, then throat as he sagged. Blood sprayed onto her gloves. Lead shot weight forgotten in fluid motion. At mid-morning, Tywin's banner flagged. Bolton's flank broke Westgate. Manderley spears captured Kitchens. Tywin sounded retreat, but maze of timber, palisades funneled men into kill zone, where Karstark pikes waited. Near dusk Gendry found Arya atop rampart, hair matted, eyes wild. "Tywin, captured?" she asked. "Escaped with dozen riders," he said. "We hold keep." Cheer bellowed through courtyard. Robb raised sword stained crimson. "King in the north," soldiers cried. "And now also Stormlord," acknowledging Gendry. Victorious yet grief shadowed. That night they burned pyres for fallen. Arya watched flames consume bodies, whispering the names of Father, Hullen, Vayan Poole, Mikken. Myth of Winterfell. Tears carved clean lines down soot cheeks. She turned to Gendry. "We carry them forward." He nodded, squeezing her hand. In command tent later, Robb drafted letters to Queen Cersei demanding remains of father returned and throne abdicated for crimes. Ravens would fly, though little hope of soft answer. After scribes left, Robb addressed sister and new brother Dado. "We press to King's Landing. If Golden Fleet blocks Blackwater, Manderley sails join Storm's End ships still loyal. Once walls breach, Gendry's blood justifies claim." Gendry frowned. "I fight for justice, not crowns." "You may need crown to wield justice," Robb said quietly. Arya met Gendry's eyes, saw worry matched her own, but she also saw determination. "Then we use crown as sword hilt, not throne," she said. "Rule so no one needs fear lions again." Robb smiled sadly. "Father would like that." Ravens sped ahead bearing terms. In Red Keep, Cersei clutched message, knuckles white. She turned to Joffrey. "Boy king with man's cruelty. The wolves demand your crown." He sneered. "Let them come. I will feed them to Sir Gregor." But court murmured. Tyrells wade gardens over battlefields. Vale lords whispered neutrality. Seeds of dissent sprouted. Cersei ordered blacksmiths to double forge output. She missed the absence of one. Tobho Mott's former apprentice rumored now hammering for wolves. She spat, vowing to hang him. The march south, slowed by siege preparations. Yet along rode small folk, hailed banner. At Stony Sept, a ragged boy presented Arya a wooden wolf stag he carved. She fastened it to saddle horn. One twilight as column camped near Trident Ford. A lone rider approached under flag of peace. Lords gathered. Rider dismounted, Tyrion Lannister dusty, bearing letter. He bowed to Arya and Gendry. "I come under white flag seeking parley. The realm bleeds enough." Robb eyed him warily. "Speak." Tyrion produced parchment. "Queen Regent offers exchange. Lord Sansa Stark for truce boundaries. Gendry named Lord of Storm's End if he submits to crown and weds noble of Casterly choosing. Arya returned to Winterfell in peace." Arya's laughter cut like broken glass. "She thinks we trade lives like coin." Gendry stepped forward. "Tell your queen her coin is counterfeit." Tyrion sighed. "I expected so. Yet here other terms, release of Lord Eddard's remains, safe passage for northern dead." Robb's face softened minutely. "We will receive father," he said. "But truce demands Joffrey's abdication, Cersei's exile, justice served." Tyrion tipped his head. "War it remains." He mounted. "For what it's worth, I hope you win." "My sister is insufferable." He spurred away. Winter deepened early as armies encamped along Blackwater Rush. Frost-rimmed tents at dawn, though leaves still clung gold. Gendry inspected siege engines. The wolves' first trebuchet he named Forge Song. Crews practiced counterweight drop. Data B. Arya trained archers in Braavosi quick loose. Arrows fired in rippling waves that mimic sea spray. Inside command pavilion, Robb studied city walls. "We attack South Gate at moon's rise. draw gold cloaks while Manderly slips barges upriver. Arya, you lead infiltration of Mudgate. She nodded. Gendry protested softly, but she squeezed his hand. Night-cloaked host. Fog-blanketed river. Wolves' painted faces ash gray. Arya led 30 water dancers paddling skiffs. They hugged bluff shadows, slipping past red wine galleys whose crews snored from wine. At Mudgate, Arya clambered ladder, dispatched watchmen with needle thrust under jaw, signaled. Rope dropped. Men swarmed. Within minutes, winch reversed, gate creaked open enough for hidden force of Umber berserkers to rush. Cannonade erupted from forge song flinging boulders at southern curtain. Bells clanged city-wide. Chaos blossomed. Firepots shattered, igniting pitch. Arya raced along inner rampart, cutting torchbearers before they could light more. Forward courtyard. She encountered Sandor Clegane. Flame-lit eyes wild, mace dripping gore. He bellowed challenge. Arya slid to halt. Memories of Nymeria biting his helm flashed. Hate surged, but she steadied breath. Clegane swung downward. She sidestepped. Slash across hip. His armor deflected, but he grunted. He countered heavy overhead. She rolled, hamstringing knee joint. He roared, swung wild. She thrust needle into armpit gap. Steel found flesh. The hound staggered, breathing ragged. Yet he laughed. Little wolf, with sharp stick. He ripped helmet off, blood streaming. Run while can. But she stepped closer, meeting black pit eyes. I don't run. With final lunge, she drove blade through heart. Clegane fell, thunderous. She stood trembling as flames licked broken carts nearby. Somewhere above spires bells tolled 8 times, signal Manderly barges breaching Fish Market Wharf. The city's fall began. Gendry led charge through broken South Gate, hearthflame glowing red. On battlement, he saw Arya silhouetted against fires, sword raised. Pride and fear warred inside him, but pride won. Inside Red Keep, Cersei barricaded throne room. Joffrey screamed orders, slapping pages. Lannisport crossbowmen lined columns. Yet Grey Wind's howls echoed corridors. Robb advanced. Doors shattered under ram. Wolves poured in. Crossbow bolts flew. Shields blocked. Gendry hammered aside guard, leading Arya up dais steps. Cersei backed, crown askew, clutching Joffrey. Filthy whelp. She spat at Gendry. He raised sword. Your reign ends. Joffrey shrieked, drawing steel, lunged at Arya. She parried, twisted wrist. Blade skittered across marble. She kicked his knee, sent him sprawling. Robb strode forward. Yield, he commanded. Cersei's eyes flashed cunning. Kill me and realm fractures. Alive or dead it heals, Arya said. She bound Queen's wrists with her lead-lined glove cord. Joffrey sobbed as guards hauled him away. Robb seated himself on dais stairs, refusing iron monstrosity. Thrones breed rot, he murmured. He turned to Gendry. The realm needs king with rightful blood. Gendry stared at black blades forging seat, then at Arya stained with ash and lion blood. If I sit, it is to melt it down, he said. Build plows, not swords. Arya smiled fierce. Citizens flooded streets cheering wolves. Hammers, liberty. Bells pealed day and night. In Sept of Baelor, High Septon crowned Gendry Baratheon as Storm King. First of his name, with Arya Stark as Queen of Wolves and Storms. But he wore simple iron circlet. She none, only direwolf stag brooch at collar. Their first decree. Dismantle Iron Throne, redistribute swords to forge monuments of dead. Second, abolish debtor prisons. Third, grant North and Riverlands self-rule under King Robb. Snow fell during proclamation, though calendar said autumn. Arya lifted face to flakes, thinking of father. She whispered, "We did not bend." Later, in quiet forge within Red Keep's belly, Gendry heated one last shard of throne metal, hammer ringing. Arya watched leaning doorway. "What forge?" she asked. "A crown that weighs not." He quenched glowing circlet in oil, producing dull gray band rough and strong. He set it on anvil. "For our child someday, heir of forged peace, not stolen crowns." Arya stepped forward, placed hand over his. "Let's build world worthy of such heir." Outside, dawn bled gold over city. Glinting off towers, newly unfettered by lion banners. Drums of war faded, replaced by hammers shaping future. And through it all, a wolf and a stag walked side by side, iron and ice intertwined, no longer pawns upon board but smiths of their own realm.